Hi, good morning and welcome to another episode of Bharatvaarta Weekly. With me, I have our regular guest Abhishek Paul, and I'm your host Iyav Kanodra. Since our regular host Roshan is away, and so is the other guest Prasanna. Hey Abhishek, how are you?
And doing good. How are you?
Not too bad. Got COVID, missed it for like 2 years, avoided it, but hopefully on the recovery path. So, anyways, so moving on. So this week we've had quite a lot of news events. You had Boris Johnson visiting India. PM Modi had a speech on Red Fort, and you had the Bulldozer controversy in Delhi and Prashant Kishore's strategy for Congress. So going to the first topic. So PM Boris Johnson is currently visiting India. His visit took place while he's under fire from other MPs for the Partygate scandal. His 2-day visit will focus on economic ties and the war in Ukraine. The PM also hopes to strike a new economic deal between Britain and India, which he said should be done by Diwali. So in areas such as software engineering, healthcare, and also wants to provide alternative options for defense procurement and energy to diversify India's dependence on Russia. So, Abhishek, so what do you make of this visit, and what do you think will be achieved?
Yeah, so I think obviously it was an important visit. I think if you look at the trend and trajectory of Indo-UK relations in the recent past, I think the relation has been fairly good and stable with the Conservative Party in power in the UK. And I think the domestic politics also sort of what is there in the UK sort of makes the Tories a bit more pro-India, while Labour with their vote bank has probably got more sympathy with the Pakistan side of things, right? Uh, the Tory party also has prominent members of the Indian community in top positions, like we were discussing Rishi Sunak the other day, right? So, in general, I guess both parties and the governments are, for a positive relationship. Now, obviously, as you said, the big talking point was the trade deal, free trade agreement that is being worked upon right now. I think in the press conference, PM Modi said he would like that it gets done by the end of the year. Boris Johnson actually gave an even more aggressive deadline that he said he would like it by Diwali. So yeah, I think the fact that the Australia and UAE FTAs have happened probably gives a good sort of blueprint in terms of how to proceed and get it done, right? So that's something to watch out for. I think there is cooperation happening in obviously other areas as well. Like defense is a good example of where India and UK are working now, and there is room for a lot more to be done, especially given the whole geopolitical climate. And as we were discussing a little before, like the UK is also now actively taking interest in the Indo-Pacific with the AUKUS agreement that they have done with Australia, while India is part of the Quad. So, yeah, I think on the surface, things look quite okay in the India-UK relationship for now. But whether the trade deal FTA gets done will probably give a better hint in terms of whether both parties are able to get over some of the more sticking points that will be there in the final print.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think one is UK has also been wanting to find trade partners after it getting out of the EU, and India also is now looking to open up its economy more and try and build up on like certain exports. So good news is, yeah, Scotch whiskey might get cheaper in India, but also this opens up for like a lot of Indian manufacturing setup, and now India is assembling a lot of like mobile phones and like mobile phone chargers. India is the largest manufacturer of that, so I think gives a lot of Indian industry access to other markets as well. So absolutely, it's a win-win. And as you pointed out, right, like the Conservative Party is closer to India, and so it's very critical that this gets done before like the government changes or whatever, right? So while they're not due for an election this year, it's very important to increase deals, because once they are done, they are set. So it's not very easy to reverse them, even if like another party comes into power. So that is a really good development. Uh, Moving on. So PM Modi gave a speech at the Red Fort on the occasion of the 400th birth anniversary of Guru Tegh Bahadur. On Thursday, PM celebrated in this significant Sikh holiday at the Red Fort. During his speech, he mentioned that the Red Fort is a witness that even though Aurangzeb severed a lot of heads, he could not shake our faith. And on this occasion, he's released a commemorative coin and a postage stamp. So, Abhishek, what do you make out of this? Is this just like a bit of Sikh pandering after they're drubbing in the Punjab elections, or is there something more to this?
So if it is pandering, it is not really related to the election, where I don't think BJP was expected to do well. Probably it's more of a consequence of the whole farm protests, right? So I think the top echelons of the BJP is always mindful that it's important that the perception of Hindu-Sikh amity prevails, and there is definitely a discourse which sort of paints the BJP as anti-minority and anti-Sikh as well. So that's a perception they have to constantly keep trying to fight, right? I think some of it comes from that angle, but yeah, I think interesting choice of doing this speech, giving it such a big sort of stage, right, at Red Fort. I don't think it has been done before. But yeah, interesting sort of. Obviously, I mean, people will look at the political meaning behind it, and it's not like there is a big upside for the BJP to come because elections are over, right? It's more like it's an effort by them to sort of keep sort of or build a bit more amity between the two communities after the whole farmer protest thing, right? So yeah, that's what I think about this.
Oh, true, true, true. Also, what is Modi is using all these opportunities to kind of keep a consistent messaging. So probably using all these celebrations, etc., to further his own message. Moving on, so BJP was under fire for bulldozing encroachments in Delhi's Jahangirpuri area. It is after there were a couple of stone pelting incidents and riots on religious lines in that area. BJP chief Adesh Gupta had written a letter to the MCD corporation mayor to identify and demolish illegal encroachments and made by those who were arrested for the violence. But AAP alleged that the order had been issued to harass a particular community in name of encroachments. And as you can see, it's been bad timing where British PM Boris Johnson was photographed with a JCB bulldozer talking about economic ties between India and the UK, and we could import more of such construction equipment. So, what do you make of this whole incident here?
Yeah, I think so. Bulldozing of illegal encroachments has been happening throughout like my lifetime, as I can remember. I mean, I recall very vividly there used to be a Pizza Hut or a Domino very near to where I used to stay earlier, and suddenly, I returned one day from office and I saw that they had demolished the entire place because like a few inches or a couple of feet was sort of encroaching on the road, right, of that building. So municipalities all around India demolish illegal encroachments, and the key criticism is often is that not that the demolition is per se wrong, but that the proper process is not followed, right? So I think common sense will also tell us that the right process is you issue a notice, you get replies, and then it's probably you get the orders after this give and take has happened, right? And clearly this process is probably not being followed in the case in Delhi or a few other incidents that happened around the country like Madhya Pradesh, etc. Now, why the BJP is doing it? I think there are a few reasons, right? So one is their inability to sort of preempt or stop law and order incidents or riots that happened last week, right? On Ram Navami, etc. Right? So now, obviously, they are under fire for not being able to control law and order. So now, how do you change the perception? One quick way is you appear strong on the topic by acting against illegal encroachments. Now, people will obviously question the timing because it looks pretty bad, right? Where you are doing it in a sort of vindictive way. The other thing is, I think how it's sort of used in Uttar Pradesh is like it is sort of like used as a warning to others that if you do this, you will face this consequence. So yeah, it's quite troublesome in the sense if you also read, I think the matter went up to Supreme Court pretty quickly, and they asked for status quo, but people went back and forth whether we have heard what the Supreme Court has said or not, and they used that excuse for 2-3 hours. Now it's troublesome in a lot of ways because one, you don't want to be sort of going against what the Supreme Court is doing, but at the same time, another troubling issue is why is it sort of going to Supreme Court in the first place, right? So I mean, there are a lot of issues, right? Like I think India's justice system not delivering is also a reason why these kinds of actions are taken by politicians and even supported by the public in some way, right? Because they feel that an illegal encroachment case will probably go on for 15 years in various courts and no real resolution will happen. So politicians also feel emboldened that they can do this. So yeah, it's like all sorts of India's public policy issues coming to a head in these kind of
Absolutely.
issues, incidents, right?
One side comes out better over this, but it also highlights all our weaknesses. And like
yes, like state capacity, judicial capacity, due process, all the issues are sort of
place.
Yeah.
Since we're too late, you kind of do everything haphazardly, and then maybe there are a lot of those unfortunately people living in those encroachments who are not uh, party to the stone pelting or any other crimes committed, any riots committed, and they are collateral damage.
Yeah, so I mean, the whole thing about, so basically this is like a collective punishment to a locality,
Yeah,
because out of there, certain elements have done, all this rioting and stone pelting, etc. So, I mean, it's a collective punishment happens because, we are not able to give, quick justice in our system right now, right? So there is no faith in the judicial system, although people will say platitudes. But the fact is, I guess, a lot of people have lost or don't have faith in at least quick justice in these kind of cases.
absolutely, absolutely. So moving on to something positive. So India's richest man, Gautam Adani, made some positive remarks in a statement at the India Economic Conclave. The industry has stated that no one will go to bed hungry if India becomes a 30 trillion economy by the year 2050. So 28 years from now. And he stated that uplifting the lives of 1.4 billion might feel, so while it feels like a sprint in the short run, it's actually like a marathon. And he predicted India will add a little over 25 trillion to our economy, and with eradication of all forms of poverty. So what do you think about this thing? Is he just talking his own book, which he wants to happen, or is it realistic?
I thought in some ways it was a fairly moderate kind of forecast. I think there are others who will probably say, will probably be even more. But at the end of the day, I think someone like Gautam Adani, who has been incredibly successful in the last decade, let's say, and especially in the last few years, he has all the reasons to be bullish. And I mean, it wouldn't make sense for Gautam Adani to give circumspect statements given how successful he is. So yeah, I think it's only natural that he was being bullish about India and the India story. So yeah, I think a lot will depend on probably how the next 5-10 years go, because it's all path dependent, right? The better you do now, the more better your trajectory will be as you get closer to 2040, 2050, right? So nothing is more important than now, I would say.
No, agreed, agreed. And if you just look at, like, I just did a ballpark check. So if I just do like 28 years and to grow 10x, it is not completely outrageous. Obviously, India will face different challenges. So I think every time you kind of double the size of your GDP, what happens is that you face new challenges and new bottlenecks, and countries can like find themselves in a middle income trap where earlier, because the whole society gets a little bit richer, you lose like cheap labor to do things.
Correct, exactly.
So there are different at every stage. At every stage. So right now, say we are a 3 trillion economy. When we go to 5-6 trillion, there are different set of challenges. When we reach to 10, then we have different set of challenges, 20 and 30. So obviously, I think, but what happens is,
it's like the question is at what stage we sort of the growth rate slows down to the advanced economy kind of growth rates, right? And the idea is like that it doesn't slow down, right? Till we are somewhat real middle income, right? Rather than, yeah.
no, absolutely, absolutely. And so I think this is also what is important in such communication is kind of like it kickstarts, like it regenerates the animal spirits, right? India is seeing a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of like venture capital being deployed. This attracts some foreign capital. I've like said previously also on the podcast that India is a country with surplus labor and lack of capital. And if you can like merge these two together, attract foreign capital, and kind of work at like removing bottlenecks one by one by one, definitely India can actually, if you go just consistently at like 7-8%, for 28 years. That's the whole key. With like a stable currency, we will reach there, right? So it's just a matter of time. It's a matter of being consistent and like pushing on with the goals. And obviously, Gautam Adani, with all his uh, business ventures doing very well, Adani Green being one of them, and the whole energy transition. I think it's a very critical juncture as well, right? Like the world is transitioning away from like fossil fuels. Maybe people will use either like clean coal or go to nuclear, even after this whole Russia-Ukraine shock. So it's kind of like resetting. New supply chains are emerging. So India is poised to take advantage of it. As usual, execution plays the key. But hopefully we do that and maybe surpass it. Probably reach there earlier. Hopefully. So, anyways, moving on. Political analyst Prashant Kishore has approached Congress with a 600 slide presentation on election strategy. There is a buzz of him joining the party also in 2024 elections. Uh, Kishore on Monday evening met the party chief Sonia Gandhi for a planning session for the upcoming assembly polls this year and Lok Sabha elections in 24. Reportedly, Congress is considering Kishore's proposal for a revival of the Grand Old Party and a game plan for the upcoming elections. So, Abhishek, what do you make? Like Prashant Kishore has been like kind of a professional election strategist, right, or a spin doctor, as you may call it, having assisted parties across the spectrum. So, what do you make of like his this venture?
Yeah, I think there are numerous such folks probably in the Indian electoral landscape, but he's the one who is okay with his face being out there. I think there are a lot others who prefer to be completely in the background, right? They don't want the publicity to their name. So yeah, I was actually surprised that this thing happened because he had obviously reached out and I think worked with the Congress in the past, but they had some sort of fall off. And after that, Prashant Kishore was quite critical of Congress in interviews. There is one with Shekhar Gupta that I had caught a few months back, where he was quite critical of the Congress approach, etc. So interesting that he went back for a discussion with the Congress. I think the good thing for him is that Congress is at such a floor level that there's not much downside for them to go, and he can probably do some work, and if they do well little bit as well, he can probably take the credit for that. But I think to be fair to him, he's a smart man. I think I would say that some of the issues that he has previously publicly sort of talked about the Congress does make sense. So, for example, some of the things he's talked about is getting a bit total clarity in the leadership position and how inter-party democracy happens and all that, right? Right now, it's sort of left to the three people from the Gandhi family who have the real leadership positions, but after election defeats, there isn't any accountability. So the next level is sort of sacrificed and new people come in, but not much changes on the ground. I think he's also talked about Congress as a party, who is identified with the freedom struggle, having completely ceded the nationalism space to BJP. How do you do that? Like, how do you mess that up, right? He's also talked about how did Congress let the BJP co-opt all the Congress leaders of the past outside the Gandhi family, right? So, like Sardar Patel is a very good example. So, Congress, in their obsession of only highlighting the members of the Gandhi family neglected in cultivating the legacy of people like Patel, which allowed BJP etc. to come in, and they respect him and they benefit out of that association, right? Not and even in recent times, like the treatment of PV Narasimha Rao, who's by any definition probably the most successful Congress Prime Minister. Congress has totally given up on honoring him or using his work in a positive way, right? So those are like many of the unforced errors that Congress has made. Of course, there are many other issues, like they don't really have a coherent message right now. They lack the energy, let's say, that is demonstrated by the BJP leadership when it comes to electoral battles. So those kind of things are there. I think given the state of the Congress, I think they will probably benefit with getting Prashant Kishore in. But the question really remains how much independence or authority they will give him to make the required changes. So that remains a question mark.
True. Also, right now, Congress, if you look at like state elections, so only in Rajasthan and in Chhattisgarh do they have like a chief minister. They're part of coalition governments in a couple of other places. But that too, they've kind of like ceded ground quite a bit. And as you said, like while Prashant Kishore is a smart guy, is he given a free hand to implement the tough changes that are needed, right? So apart from just messaging and marketing, even like things on the ground need to change. So, well, it remains to be seen. I personally felt like 600-page PPT is probably combined size of all the presentations I've made in my full career.
Rarely so that one is probably a joke that sort of became a news, right?
Yes. So yeah, absolutely. And then final topic for today, US Congresswoman Ilhan Omar visited Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. That has been condemned by India. In a statement, Ilhan Omar's visit was termed as violative of India's territorial integrity and sovereignty and reflected on narrow-minded politics. The US has notified that actions do not represent the United States in any way, and it was like a personal trip. So, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I mean, none of it was surprising, right? So, Ilhan Omar is one of the rising stars in the Democratic Party, whether we like it or not. Along with, so she's called a member of the squad or something like that, right? Where they are supposedly the most progressive wing of the Democratic Party, and she has often, been anti-Israel, anti-India, or brought up issues of Islamophobia in various forums. All right. So yeah, I think her visit to Pakistan doesn't surprise me. I think the timing was interesting, given there has been a government change in Pakistan. Maybe this was probably planned in advance and they went ahead with the trip. So she ended up meeting both Imran Khan and Shahbaz Sharif during this trip. So yeah, I think India's response is also quite understandable. I think India generally condemns the visit of any foreign politicians into POK, right? And so the foreign ministry spokesperson issued a statement condemning that, and the US also sort of gave a clarification that this is not an official visit by any means. But yeah, I think the way to read it is that Pakistan continues to have some allies in the United States political fray. Even though it's probably at its lowest when it comes to US-Pakistan relationship in general in the last 20-30 years. But still, I mean, we always say that Pakistan punches above its weight when it comes to the foreign policy arena. And so that has not really changed, although I guess Imran Khan was not really a very successful prime minister in that arena. So yeah, I think the current Biden administration probably is sort of sanitized, or has kept away from some of these elements of the party. But future democratic administrations will probably have more influence from the sections of the party like the Squad and Ilhan Omar. So that's something India will always have to sort of watch out.
True, absolutely, absolutely. And even like it's like a fine balancing act, right? Because each side, India, while it has a lot more leverage than it had before, it's still quite less. Like China kind of wouldn't allow Nancy Pelosi to visit Taiwan. And they have that much more leverage because the economy is quite big, very well entrenched into the global supply chains. So probably if India's GDP does grow 5 times, probably India can actually exercise more power or more leverage this way. But absolutely, as in, and in all these places, like India does have to uh, like know which forces are for or against India, and like utilize the ones which are pro India to be the ones leading all the other discussions, etc. Right? So absolutely it, but it's a good thing that we've actually condemned it and like made an issue out of it. Earlier, I don't know if these things have happened before. Earlier, India was quite reticent on the global stage, right? These things would not be made public, might have been made in private directly to them, etc. So that's one way of looking at it in a positive sense. But yeah, so I think that's about it. That's a wrap for the week. So thank you for tuning into Bharatvaarta Weekly.
I think, Neerav, we should also wish Sachin a happy birthday on his
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
49th birthday, right?
Yeah,
and
so,
Bharatvaarta, viewers can check out a previous episode we have done only on Sachin. So maybe we should tweet that out today.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It's not just like Sachin's 49th birthday, but also like the 25th anniversary, or no, 98th, 24th,
24th, yeah.
24th anniversary of the Desert Storm Part 2. So I think there's 22nd April and 24th April. I remember those matches like it was yesterday. So
I think we have, I was just looking at the comments. So Roshan has been commenting on our live stream. So he had a question. What do you think about the idea of Ramchandra Guha suggesting Ravish Kumar as the Congress PM candidate?
So I see. It's here. It's also about like who holds the real power. So
Right.
you know, for example, when Manmohan Singh was the Congress candidate, did he really have the power? And the PM's office should be the most powerful. It should not be that the party president controls more power over someone. So that is one thing to be seen. Two is who knows who will be put up as the face or whether they can garner enough votes, etc. Ravish Kumar does have some sort of fan following, and does it translate into like a nationwide voting thing for him, or if he becomes too popular, does he get cut down in size by the Congress party leadership? So remains to be seen.
I think
We talked about Raghuram Rajan earlier as well.
yes. So they are always these talks of them looking for the next Manmohan Singh.
Yes.
Right, because somehow so I don't know if they have really settled down on the issue of whether Rahul Gandhi is the right face to lead them to the next elections or whatever, whenever there is a general election. I think the last term they definitely did project Rahul Gandhi only, but I mean that's another debate for Congress to settle, whether they want a technocrat or another kind of figure to head, or the Gandhi family to head the party as the PM face.
A journalist, and he's become the prime minister. So it's not as if it can't be possible. And then the second thing is also remains to be seen if like Congress can field like enough candidates to get like a reasonable majority on its own, or like be the leading party in a coalition. Because for all we know, we might see some sort of like a MVA government, or
Yeah.
like so like a grand coalition of like regional parties all coming together, whether it is a third front or it is a Congress-led non-BJP front, if you might call it that way. Which
Yeah, I think like one of the talked about strategies is to just somehow deny BJP an absolute majority, and then they can sort of cobble up the rest
as a
post-election, like Maharashtra. Yeah.
So grand coalition, yeah, absolutely. So in that case, again, we may not see like a Congress PM. We might see someone who's got a little more leverage, who has the ability to walk away. That person might be the PM if like BJP loses in 2024. Anyways, it's interesting times, and there are a lot of things in open. Like Churchill had said, a week is a long time in politics. So this is over 2 years away.
Yeah.
Right? Who knows? A lot of things can change by then. So yeah, with this we call it a wrap. Join us next week for the next episode of Bharatvaarta Weekly, and we'll definitely put up the episode on Sachin Tendulkar as part of our social media feeds. Do check that out as well.
Bye-bye.